Hey everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka MBT, back again with another episode of Locals Live, and look at that mat! Look at those pants! Look at the jacket! And most importantly, look at that field center. That's right, it's time for the Pro Play Games Tournament. If you are interested in watching me on Twitch, I will be live Saturday from 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, I believe, on twitch.tv/ppgygo. For now, you'll just have to gaze upon the glory of this field center as I stumble my way through Hero. This is the first event I took Hero to, and I went 5-0. I kind of learned how to play the deck over the course of the matches, though. This is the very first one, and as a result, my play is a little crusty. I make a terrible mistake in the first game, which I have to come back from through any means necessary. My opponent is playing Zombie. This is a fantastic deck. I love playing against Zombie because it's so interesting. It's that Balerdroch deck that sets Zombie World, and then special summons Balerdroch from the graveyard, negating and banishing monsters as they use their effects. I roll an 8, and my opponent rolls a 3, so I will go first. That's what I get for using loaded dice. Now, one of the frustrating things about this matchup is Zombie World. It doesn't let you tribute summon monsters. Thankfully for me, it does let you tribute them, which is important for Cross Crusader, but it also means that I won't be able to tribute summon Ferris, the most important thing I could possibly do. We're going to lead with A Hero Lives, and honestly, having played this deck a little bit at this point in time, I now understand why it went to 1. With Stratos at 3, plus Shadow Mist in the format, it's not only an exceptionally powerful tutor tool for Ferris, it's also an easy way to get Mask Change into hands that otherwise wouldn't have them. You could see our hand was pretty bad, so we're going to have to go for the Stratos option. We'll add a copy of Ferris to hand, and thankfully we're about to perform the most powerful play in the deck, discarding a Malicious to special summon Ferris. Obviously, you want to be able to get that Malicious in the graveyard. Ideally, you won't have the second copy in your hand. Now here's my misplay. First, I activate the effect of Increase, as you can see. Then I activate the second effect of Increase to special summon a Vision Hero from deck. After that, I neglect to remember that Vision Hero Vion actually has 2 effects. I'm going to look at my hand real quickly. Okay, well, I know I'm going to be able to polymerize with a copy of Destiny Hero Malicious in my hand, so I send a copy of Shadow Mist. I use Shadow Mist's effect in order to get a hero to hand, and of course there are so many options, but I already have an E-Call, so I might as well get something that I couldn't get otherwise. I'm thinking about Celestial and Dynatag. They would give my copy of Dystopia staying power, or at the very least deal a bit of damage to my opponent's life points, but I finally settle on Plasma. I will need to search Plasma at some point during this combo, it just matters when. I decide to get it before my opponent interrupts, and then I go ahead and Link Summon. Now, the correct play was to use the effect of Vion here to get a copy of Polymerization. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to end on Dystopia. More importantly, that Dystopia won't be able to pop any of my opponent's cards, and my copy of Plasma is going to be a sitting duck to anything with more than 2,000 attack points. We're going to activate the effect of Cross Crusader to bring back Malicious, then the second effect of Cross Crusader to tag out into a card. I'm looking at Dystopia real quick. It's 2 Destiny Hero monsters, and at this point I realize I've screwed up. Okay, well there's no way I'll be able to summon it without a polymerization. So it's time to rethink my strategy. While I could get another copy of something like a Dynatag to ensure that my Dystopia is on, I think I'd rather have it in the first place. We have a couple of searches remaining, and I haven't used my normal summon, so theoretically, if I get something, it could make it onto the board. I might actually have to settle for Vision Hero Vion here. If I normal summon Vion, I'll be able to banish one of these cards in my graveyard and get the polymerization that I forgot, because, of course, Vion is not a once per turn pick one of these, it is a once per turn activate both effects of Vion, and at this point I'm looking at the polymerization in my deck thinking, how could I be so stupid so early in the tournament? Usually it takes until at least 9 p.m. until I'm making these types of mistakes. Eventually I settle on Vion and then activate E-Call in order to get the card that I really want out of the deck. While there are about 15 different targets for Rhoda, and almost everything in the deck is searchable by Stratos, there's not very many things that E-Emergency Call gets. I believe it only gets Solid Soldier, Stratos, Shadow Mist, and, of course, Honest Neos. We have the Honest Neos in hand, so no need to get that. My opponent's going to look at the graveyard real quick. Yes, I can add that polymerization to my hand. He's going to look real quick at A Hero Lives to try and figure out what life points I'm at. It's still 4,000, and I will point out how many summons I've conducted to give any wayward Nibirus a chance to hit the battlefield. Well, time to go ahead and do it. I'll normal summon a copy of Solid Soldier in order to special summon a copy of, you guessed it, Vion, and then I'll activate the effect of Vion, very embarrassed with myself, to banish a hero from my graveyard. I choose Vion because I think that's the funniest, and search a polymerization to my hand. Now, even though we drew 2 copies of Destiny Hero Malicious, we still have one in graveyard. We don't have to banish Malicious with Malicious's effect in order to get it on the field for Cross Crusader, because he does all the heavy lifting himself. We're going to use Malicious's effect to get our final Malicious from deck. This is perfect fodder for Dystopia, but unfortunately it doesn't look like it's going to be on. Maybe we should have added Dynatag at some point during this combo, but I don't think we had a free search since we had to expend our extra one on, you guessed it, the copy of, Vion. Folks, you will drastically increase your play rate if you remember to play the deck correctly. Now we have enough material on board to end on a Cross Crusader, a Plasma, and while the Dystopia isn't exactly on, we do have a copy of Honesty Neos in hand if things get a little crusty and we need to pop something quickly. Ideally, we'd have one more hero on board and we'd be able to link away for a copy of Dread Devastator, protecting both of our monsters from anything without like 3,000 points of attack. Now, Plasma has 2 effects. You all know the first one, it's the Relinquished effect, and God knows why this card has a Relinquished effect. But it's also an AoE skill drain. It negates the effects of all monsters your opponents control, but not your own. This gives you access to Dystopia, who is effectively a Trident, while your opponent is locked out of the majority of their monster effects. I've been a long proponent of saying if you're playing Rogue, you'd better be doing something unfair. Otherwise, why wouldn't you just be playing meta? Well, this is the unfair thing that Hero does. The other board that can potentially pivot into is a copy of Dark Law alongside a Dystopia, usually under a Wonder Driver, so you can recycle a Mask Change and get 2 Dark Law procs over the course of the turn. Depending on the matchup, you'll want to go into X or Y setup, and the latter setup is much easier when you're playing a card like Liquid Man. Unfortunately, at the time of filming, Liquid Man had not yet been released, so I was unfortunately without both it and Sunriser, and honestly did not feel the lack of Miracle Fusion at all. Well, with that, we'll pass it back to our opponent and wish them good luck. They're playing on a Noble Knight mat, so I'm sure they're a man of quality. They're going to draw for turn, and maybe this gets them out. They have a copy of Called by the Grave. Ugh, much better on their own turn. Okay, well, the first thing they're going to do, of course, is take a look at their grip. Unfortunately, even play starters like Shiranui Solitaire require Unizombie to actually resolve, and with Plasma on field, that's going to be very difficult to do. Of course, Zombie does have a ton of playmakers that start in the graveyard, like Necroworld Banshee, but it looks like our opponent has not opened them. Instead, they're going to set 2 cards, look at the hand real quickly, think about setting an additional card. The old T-set is back, baby! Now, one problem with Hero is that while its original setup is incredibly good, unless you've got something like a Stratos in your opener, you probably won't be able to punch back very hard. Thankfully, we draw Malicious Bane, so we will be able to punch back. Of course, we're going to lead with the effect of Destiny Hero Plasma. Like Relinquished, Plasma can suck face-down monsters. Our opponent will flip up a copy of Lost Wind in response. This is great news for us. We want the Lost Wind out of the way before the combat step, and we probably will be able to punch through our opponent's meager defenses with a copy of a Duster in hand. From here, we can go into just about anything. We could make a Dread Decimator. We could make even a second copy of Cross Crusader if we're feeling exceptionally greedy. Right now, I don't want to commit too much until I know what that set card is. A Stratos would work wonders in destroying set spells and traps. We're going to link summon a copy of Cross Crusader, then use his effect to bring back a copy of a Destiny Hero in our graveyard. Now, unfortunately, we can't bring back Plasma because it has to be special summoned by tributing 3 monsters you control from your hand, so instead we'll bring back the next best thing, a Malicious. Now, Malicious may not seem like much, but remember, Cross Crusader's effect allows us to tribute it and search any hero from our deck. Our opponent's going to think real quickly. To me, that means that it's likely he's got something up his sleeve. And finally decides to activate Called by the Grave not on Malicious, but on Cross Crusader. That's even better, though now we have perfect information, provided that set card isn't something like a Morphing Jar. We'll go ahead and banish the Cross Crusader, and I find myself in this situation a lot. I have a Bane at my disposal, and it's time to just activate it, hope for the best, and recognize that if you do not win this turn, you are probably going to lose on the crackback. We'll activate our German Aduster Gold. I advocate everyone to use the German printing of this card for 2 reasons. One, it's way cheaper. If you have any friends in Germany, ask them to ship it to you. It's like €30 compared to the $2 quadrillion it costs in the States. And secondly, you can't really make out what type this card is. If your opponent asks, it's not a fiend, it's a warrior, and this Rhoda search is legal, sir. We'll then activate Dark Calling. Dark Calling permits us to special summon a copy of Bane from our extra deck, provided we banish a Dark, I think, hero with a level of 5 or more, and a Duster Gold themselves. We'll do just that, and get ourselves a copy of Bane! He is a big guy for my opponent. We'll then go to combat. Provided that this set card has a defense stat of less than 1600, we should be able to win. I really don't want to walk in with anything less than lethal, so I'll go ahead and attack with Cross Crusader, and thankfully it's just a Mizuki. Well, that should be it. We'll first attack in with Bane, and then get in with this copy of Dystopia. In damage step, we're going to activate the effect of Honesty Neos, putting our opponent down to a healthy 0 life points. Okay, well, that's a quick game 1. Let's see if we can make it happen again. Okay, so now it's time for game 2, and this time we are going second. Less than ideal, but Hero has no problem cracking established boards. Our opponent's going first, and unfortunately for us, they have plays. They're going to lead with a copy of Shiranui's Solitaire. This is just an exceptionally powerful card that allows a pivot into Unizombie, and it turns on the entire deck, more or less. Unfortunately for my opponent, I have an Ash Blossom. This is this deck's worst enemy. Hilarious, because they're a zombie archetype. Afterwards, they'll activate Foolish Burial, and oh, dang it, okay, well, apparently they do have plays further after all. They're going to thumb through the deck real quick. There's a multitude of cards they want in the graveyard. A Mizuki would bring back the Shiranui Solitaire, but unfortunately for them, it's a hard once per turn. Instead, they're going to go for a copy of Necroworld Banshee, which can be banished to activate a Zombie World. Zombie World is an incredibly powerful card for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it makes all the cards on the field in the graveyard zombies, and secondly, it prevents tribute summoning for some unknown reason. Shouts out to Trinity format, where this card is banned for being a floodgate against tribute summoning decks. It's actually pretty relevant. Our opponent also has, oh, is that a 1-for-1? That's terrible. I don't have an Ash Blossom for this, of course, and I wouldn't be able to activate it even if I did. 1-for-1 is able to special summon a copy of Glow Up Bloom from deck. Now, when Glow Up Bloom goes to the graveyard, it's able to send a big zombie to the graveyard as well, but if you have a copy of Zombie World on your side of the field, it's able to special summon it instead. The card he discarded was Balerdroch, and things are about to get really bad. He'll then link summon a copy of Linkuriboh, putting the Glow Up Bloom in the graveyard, and then afterwards triggering the effect of Glow Up Bloom, summoning a Balerdroch from deck. So most likely, we're going to see double Balerdroch in the standby phase of our opponent's turn, provided we don't draw one of the Cosmic Cyclones we boarded into. While I knew my opponent was playing back row and Cosmic Cyclone would have some utility, I actually expected that this was the version of zombie they were on, just because it's the most potent, the most powerful, and the most consistent. Our opponent's going to shuffle their deck and take a look at the graveyard real quick before they finally settle on passing it back to us. Now, this is going to be difficult. Balerdroch means that one of the effects I activate will be negated, and another will cause a monster on my side of the field to be banished. This is a real problem for me. I need almost every monster I summon as fodder for fusion summons. Additionally, I am really not interested in getting a Ferris negated. Of course, there are a couple of choke points for this deck. They are few and far between, but that Celestial isn't going to help anything. In standby, our opponent will trigger the graveyard effect of Balerdroch. That's okay with me. Well, as okay as it can be for someone who might potentially lose the game right now. And I think I have to start baiting. Now, one thing you'll learn with Hero very quickly is the bluff is extremely important. Because the choke points for any individual turn differ massively based on the contents of your hand, pretending that this Stratos is just a free search is likely to net me more wins than the alternative. We'll go ahead and get a copy of Ferris here. This reveals to our opponent that we actually did need the search of the Stratos, and hopefully tilts them just a little bit, making them think they made the wrong decision. Unfortunately, we're now in a position where Ferris is an extremely telegraphed choke point. Occasionally, your opponent will allow Ferris to resolve if you haven't used your normal summon, because theoretically you could normal summon a Vion and get the same result. But we've used our normal summon on Stratos, which means they will absolutely have to negate the effect of Ferris if they want to win. However, we have a bit of insurance for our Ferris play, insofar as there's a Shadow Mist in our opener. By discarding the Shadow Mist as the cost for Ferris, we can trigger the effect of Ferris and the effect of Shadow Mist in a link that prevents my opponent from negating it. They think real quickly and say, I will actually negate, I'll negate the Ferris, to which I respond, no, you can really only respond to the most recent link on the chain. It makes absolutely no sense why Yu-Gi-Oh! Works like this. I've always advocated for a change to the stack in Magic, but I'll take my wins where I can get them. Chain blocking is also very specific to Yu-Gi-Oh!, but every single game has a ruling like this, where your lack of in-game knowledge can translate into a loss, remanding the Cascade spell, for example, in Magic the Gathering. We're going to think real quickly about the Shadow Mist. What do I want to add? We could add something like Bane. That might be powerful, so we'll do just that. We'll activate a Duster Gold, or at least reveal it. I'm trying to give my opponent as many opportunities as possible to negate the effect of one of my monsters, and using Increase to get Vion is a fantastic time for them to do so. Unfortunately, there's no real good position to negate anymore. If I use the effective increase to get a Vion, then of course I will be able to pop off further. But if I use the effect of a Dust or Gold in my hand and it resolves unimpeded, I can destroy my opponent's entire board and get in for potentially lethal with a copy of Stratos. We're going to go ahead and get a copy of Vion, and then we'll use the effect of Vion and give our opponent a chance to think. They finally pull the trigger and negate this monster's effect. Honestly, at this point in the combo, I don't even blame them. Binning another card seems absolutely detrimental, especially if that card would be Malicious. Keeping Malicious out of the graveyard is probably critical to them winning the game. We'll activate the second effect of Vion in order to add a Polymerization to our hand, remembering to use it this time, and we still have to get through the Balerdroch's ability to banish a card we control. This is particularly problematic. Banishing any of our monsters, especially if they're critical playmakers, something like Cross Crusader before he's able to activate the second half of his effect, is extremely bad. We're going to go ahead and fire this copy of Polymerization. Now, what I'm hoping my opponent is going to do is get our copy of Dangerous and banish it. Now, Dangerous is an exceptionally powerful monster at this stage in the game because it represents a Malicious in the graveyard, and that's not something our opponent wants. I'm going to go ahead and look at the graveyard real quick. There's now a Celestial in there, which will matter next turn, should we get that far. At this point, they're wringing their hands, giving me all the nonverbals in the world that the rest of the grip isn't particularly relevant. We'll go ahead and activate the effect of Dangerous, sending a Mally to the graveyard, and they are holding this banish forever. I just want them to fire it so that my 3-mat Malicious can make it onto the board unimpeded. Okay, well, let's go into Cross Crusader, I expect. We'll activate the effect of Cross Crusader, and this has got to fetch a banish. They don't want me to search any hero from my deck, do they? We'll bring back this copy of Dangerous, because again, I don't want the Malicious banished. Finally, I decided enough is enough. It's time to get the Malicious onto the field and potentially risk a banishing. We're going to thumb through the deck. We have 2 Maliciouses available, step up from the previous game. We're going to read Balerdroch real quick. I just want to know how hard this once per turn is. Okay. Well, with no banish on board, I figure I might as well activate the effect of Cross Crusader. I do want to search a hero. I think the easiest out to this board at this position is either a Bane or potentially something like a Plasma. The Plasma I can search right now if my opponent refuses to banish, so we might as well do that. We'll send this copy of Malicious to the graveyard to activate Cross Crusader's effect. Our opponent will think real quick, and I will thumb through the deck to find Plasma. Now, I don't want to give my opponent a chance to banish something before I Plasma, so I won't banish this other Malicious to get a Malicious. Potentially we have to use the third one as some sort of material for some sort of link over the course of the turn. I think I really just want to wipe my own board in order to get a copy of Plasma and then suck one of these 2 Balerdrochs. While thumbing through the deck, I almost just give it back to them before saying, you know, I'm pretty sure I'm actually going to go back over the course of this turn, looking at the Dust or Gold in my hand. Folks, don't give away free information like that. Don't live my mistakes. We'll then special summon this copy of Plasma. Of course, this means all monsters' effects on the field are negated, and I'm able to suck my opponent's monster. They have nothing to respond to it with, so I will take one of these Balerdrochs. That is exactly what I want to see. He's putting it in the graveyard. No, no, no. It's much less accessible than that. Afterwards, we'll activate the effect of a Duster to get a copy of Dark Calling. Dark Calling is exceptionally powerful. We'll go ahead and activate it, banishing both a copy of a Duster, and we have no shortage of level 5 or higher heroes in the graveyard. We could banish something like a Ferris, something like the Dangerous, and I think the Dangerous is the funniest, so we might as well do that. I'll activate Dark Calling in the zone next to the Balerdroch and banish the Dangerous as well before going into Bane. Now, Bane cares about less than or equal to attack points. This Balerdroch, thankfully, is less than, so we'll be able to destroy both it and Link Haribo, putting us in OTK range with an Honesty Neos that we don't have. He'll go to 34, and my opponent decides he doesn't actually want to play this out. He'll concede right here, giving me the win in a quick 2-0. Hopefully, I will learn to activate Vion in the future. Thanks for stopping by.